Hello and welcome to the Be Formless Flow Driven CEO podcast, where we are reshaping life, leadership, and business from the inside out. And today, I won't say this morning, I am welcoming to the show all the way from Northern Virginia, where it's actually Thursday, 4 p.m. So I can't say good morning. Welcome to the show, Lisa Shoemaker.
Hi, B. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh, we've had quite the conversation pre-show. I'm doing that with all my guests. I'm like, I get everybody on, and then we end up just like, la, 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 la. We were talking about I learned about the snowcrete, and then we've talked about had a great conversation about our dogs. I feel like we've already had a bit of a podcast, a
It's a
personal.
good time that you've got some interesting folks joining you on your podcast, it sounds like.
I certainly do. I certainly do. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation today because you have quite the background when it comes to career, story, experience. And, I was just saying to you just then, we're in this very much rapidly changing world, and you've no doubt seen quite a lot over your career, and I'm looking forward to hearing a bit of your backstory and getting into it. Currently, you are Senior Vice President of Corporate Relations at IDEMIA, a public security company where you lead government relations, communications, and market education. And essentially, you're a government contracting in biometric identity and public security tech. I'll leave it at that, and I'll let you explain it in more
Huh?
detail. Hopefully, I got that right. You
Yes.
are a native Mississippian, and you have been recognized by the Security Industry Association for policy advocacy and regularly represents IDEMIA before state and federal stakeholders. And that's the kind of bit I'd love to hear more about. I've had a lot of my own experience in state and federal, but government here locally, but in Australia. But I'm no doubt you've got some. You started at the age of 17, you said, in politics, which is amazing. And so you keep the conversations anchored in accuracy, fairness, and real world trust, which I absolutely love. You're also the mum to two. Can you please announce the breed of your puppies again?
Bichons.
These
Bichon
are-
Frise.
Yeah, they're
It's
very
like
cute.
a little white powder puff.
Yeah, they're so cute, and they're not enjoying the snow at the moment. They're gliding on the
They're
ice.
ice skating in our backyard right now, so it's no fun for them. It's so cold.
No, it is so cold. So I'm going to hand it over to you. Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure, sure. And so you referenced that I've been in politics since I was 17. I actually started working on my first presidential campaign when I was 17, but I worked on my first political campaign, not a presidential, when I was in the second grade.
Oh my
So
gosh.
have politics is kind of all I've ever known. There was a local guy from our hometown who was running for statewide office, and I ended up, I mean, obviously you're not very old in the second grade. I think I was like, what, 8 years old? And so, I passed out cookies, I asked people to vote for him, those types of things. But that was actually my first entry into politics. And then I've just kind of made a career out of it. But, I've worked on every Republican presidential campaign since I was 17, have been involved in the current President Trump's campaigns since 2016, which is a couple of podcast episodes by themselves, right?
Oh my
Just
gosh, yeah.
those experiences are just insane. But now I lead government relations and communications and marketing for a global biometrics company. And actually, to tie it into Australia for you, I mean, we're the passenger facilitation technology that's being used at your airports
Oh
in
wow.
Australia. So same for New Zealand, same for Singapore. We do this work all over the world. We're heavily invested in the airport security scene here in the US, but across the pond. I actually made my first trip to Australia in 2024. Got to go to your zoo and
Ah,
meet a kangaroo, and had like the most incredible experience. Got to see one of the koalas in their natural
yeah,
habitat.
right.
Actually woke up for us while we were
Ah,
there, which is relative, right? Like
yeah.
there's not a lot of activity that's happening there, but I mean, just like your country's beautiful,
Oh,
and it
thank
was
you.
a
That's so
wonderful
funny. It's
experience.
so funny when people talk about the kangaroos and the koalas because, like, the kangaroos, like some people think that they're in our backyards, or they're absolutely not in the city, but you do see them jumping around in certain places that you go to. Let me guess, you were in Sydney, not Melbourne, were you? Yeah.
We're in Sydney, and we were at the zoo, so
Yeah.
it was control. But we had a fabulous experience getting to kind of go behind the scenes at the zoo, and I met a famous Australian, your former ambassador to the U.S. Joe Hockey while I was there.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a great conversation with him around just the environment in Australia, doing work in Australia, kind of the relationship between the
Yeah.
U.S. And so we had a phenomenal trip. But we were there for a conference focused on the reciprocity of mobile identification across countries. So how can we get to a point where someone that has a mobile ID for a state in Australia can be accepted at a security checkpoint at the airport in the United States? And will we get there? And so the technology that we make for TSA, the Transportation Security Administration here in the US, we took that with us to Australia and demonstrated our technology's ability to be able to read those mobile driver's license and mobile ID cards outside of the US. So it was a really fascinating trip around just the future of identity and
Yeah.
security and how we get there. And there were so many countries represented at the event. It was really fascinating. So it was a really cool trip, my one and only time to
Yeah,
Australia. But
right. And
I
it's
hope I
Australia.
get back.
Yeah, totally. And is Australia like, do you see like other countries behind what you're doing in the USA, like in terms of when it comes to security and this biometrics, or is it something that you guys are, well, you as a business, I should say, are influencing to bring into other countries? Like, how is that?
Yeah, so I would say you guys, New Zealand, Singapore, y'all are really on the cutting edge. I mean,
You're right.
we're actually somewhat behind on the US side in terms of like how we're using these innovative and new technologies. But I mean, in a perfect world, we'll get to a point where only you can be you, which is the case today, and we'll use our technology alongside our best in class algorithms that are taking a photo of you and comparing that against like a system of record and knowing that B is B. She's supposed to be in this airport. She's going to check
Yeah.
through this checkpoint. She's not going to need to get her passport out to do that. You're going to be able to do that completely with your biometrics. And not only is it going to create the most frictionless
Yeah.
experience as a traveler, but also utilizing the highest form of security, because to that point, only you can be you. And
Yeah.
so that's what we're focused on. I mean, we have a couple of different markets that that our technology is used for. Law enforcement is one, the travel and border space is one. And then if you think like access and logical control into like buildings or critical infrastructure facilities. So there's a lot of great use cases for it, but obviously the travel and border one, it resonates with everyone because everyone at least flies on a plane every now and then or goes across a border to somewhere. So it's a really cool space to work in. Technology is always changing, which
Yeah.
keeps us on our toes.
Yeah.
But it also just you're able to kind of dream about like what the future is and then work alongside a lot of really smart people that can go make it happen. And so
Yeah.
I just get to carry the message around and work with governments all over the world to help either pass regulation or reform legislation that allows these technologies to be used and for us to deploy them to make the world safer, to make it better. So it's a really cool seat to sit in to watch the evolution of change happen all over the world. But
Yes.
you are leading, you're not
Oh,
following.
interesting. Yeah, I thought, yeah, interesting. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because AI is here, and then you hear about these digital twins. And I've been speaking to different people, and someone was telling me the other day about a digital twin. You can have this like if you want to be amplifying your business from a comms perspective or brand perspective, and you can create a digital twin, and it can be literally you, and you can be like it's like an influencer. And then here you are talking about this, I guess, security system, if you like, is basically enabling it just to be uniquely you. So it's interesting because it's almost like not a contradiction, but it's like here we are creating all these digital twins and, AI people and things like that. And then yet we come back to, when you're going through security and this is like ensuring that this is actually who we are. It's not a digital twin. It can't be any. Do you know what I mean? I find it's like full circle, if you like, around like, do you see that often? Like in terms of,
I mean, like AI is obviously a huge topic around the world, but definitely in the technology space, it's interesting. Just a couple of weeks ago, there's a big conference. It's a global conference here in the US called the CES, Consumer Electronics Show. It's out in Las Vegas every year. Tens of thousands of people travel out for it. And we did a presentation there on deep fakes. So that like the synthetic. Yeah, so basically if I took your face and I used technology to put your face on my face and then tried to access something as you. And so like we're right now working on technology to try to make sure that no one can pass as you, even with the aid of like AI and all these other apps and technology that people use. And so it's kind of scary. It's fascinating. It's also kind of scary because things are just moving so quickly. And you think once upon a time, like somebody, scamming our bank account card and trying to make fraudulent purchases was the biggest thing we had to worry about. Right now, there's actually tech out there that allows people to make a video with you as the primary person using footage maybe that you posted on social media. Obviously, you have a podcast, so there's a lot of content about you out there.
I know.
And people to make a video that's completely not true and post it somewhere, and people see it and they think it's real. They don't have any way of knowing it isn't real. It's just there's a lot of movement in this space that we're going to have to really think about over the next few years.
It's funny you say that because I had someone calling me last week, like just a spooky person, man, just like randomly calling me, and I was like, how did he get my number? And then I went, got to be my podcast. Like he's clearly seen me online because it is, everywhere. And he's then calling me and I just like had to just shut the phone off. Do you know what I mean? Like because they can get your information. So yeah, I think I think it's more important than ever, this whole security piece and exactly what you're doing. Tell me a little bit about, so you've got your role that you're doing, but then you've been in every single political campaign since you were literally like 17, but you started in, second year of school, right? How do you, like when you've been in, like especially the most recently with the Trump campaign, how did you juggle your full-time role, and like how did you do it? Or do you go, all right, do you switch off your full-time role and then go into political campaign mode? Like how do you manage both? Because it sounds like political campaigning would be 24/7, especially when you're in campaign mode. Yeah.
Sure. So I've been at IDEMIA for almost 5 years. So obviously we had a presidential campaign in 2016 and again in 2020.
Yeah.
And I was involved in both of those, but more in the full-time capacity.
Yeah.
As we came on 24, it's interesting. These guys that are the up and coming folks that are running political campaigns, I mean, and I have no idea how old you are because you look incredibly young.
I'm 48. I'm turning 49 this year.
Well, you look like 20.
Oh, thanks. I don't feel it.
And me either. And so, but these guys that are our future in politics are in their early 20s. And so in a lot of ways, we've kind of, helped raise them along the way, right? This is their first foray. So it's so fun to watch them. But on 24, I was really more just adjacent to it. So monitoring it obviously from work. But I did get a really cool experience. I was able to volunteer to oversee the media operations component of President Trump's inauguration back in January of 25. So work was very kind to let me volunteer to do that. There aren't a lot of people that have experience in planning national special security events. It's a designation we use in the US. It's an NSSE. And what it basically says is that law enforcement is going to coordinate the safety of this event at the highest federal level, and then basically control access to it and credentialing and all those things. And so, I mean, there are, thousands of reporters that cover these major political events all over the world, certainly in the US. And so my previous job before I joined Idemia, I was the director of media operations for the Republican National Convention when President Trump was nominated again in 2020. So had come off of the heels of doing this work. And then so got to do the inauguration. And the cool thing was I had done the previous inauguration back in 2017, but I had worked on the security aspect of it. This time was more on the media side. And so my ask of the inaugural committee was I wanted to be in the motorcade and see every single event in real time that the president participated in over the course of Saturday before the inauguration through Tuesday morning when he went to the last event, which is the national prayer service at the National Cathedral. And so I was able to literally see every single event, his entrance, his presentation, if he's speaking, his first dance at a ball, his exit and head back to the White House. And it was really cool. I don't know if this translates at all in Australia, but the First Lady had agreed to do a documentary series with Amazon. And I don't know if this is getting any traction over your way, but so in addition to the normal media that we had covering this, which was, thousands, we also had embedded Amazon film crews that were capturing the entire inaugural experience from the First Lady's perspective.
Wow.
So I also got to see the First Lady's team manage these guys' access and making sure that they were able to get never seen before footage of a First Lady experiencing inauguration. So the movie just came out at the end of January, and it's, to watch it is, I mean, we stood right there, in some cases,
incredible, isn't it?
The videographer was standing right here beside me, and I had made sure that they had a spot to stand in as soon as they got out of the motorcade to make sure they captured that shot. So has to be one of the coolest experiences that I've ever had in my life. And there have been a lot of cool experiences, but by far over the course of those, I guess it was about 4 or 5 days, just seeing and celebrating like every event along the way that was just, very curated to exactly what President Trump wanted in this second term and in his second inaugural. And just to watch it all come to life and work alongside the operations and the law enforcement and just the logistics people to make all that happen. Like, no, people see it on television and they're amazed at it, but to actually live it and be a part of planning it and then executing it and then doing that alongside the next generation of political operatives that are currently working right now in the White House and, planning state visits and being a part of peace deals and traveling all over the world with the president. Like, it's just, it's kind of unreal to think that this is like real life sometimes.
Yeah, it is. And it kind of talks to me about like the orchestration of it all and the seamlessness of it. And, you talk about operations, but you need like it's like from a leadership perspective. And I'd love your thoughts on this in terms of just orchestrating such a, I guess, precise, kind of like all these different events, if you like, the sort of leadership traits, what would you say? Like you've seen quite like over the years, but this has probably been the most surreal and unreal experience you've ever had. And even with the young up and comings, what are you seeing as like what traits are required for this sort of leadership as well, like and coordination of such a like you played a pivotal role in it as well, right? Like is it tenacity, like what is it that to pull off something like this, but also then these up and comings, what are you seeing that they require in leadership that is different to the leaders that we know of today? So there's probably two questions there.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with the second one. This crew that is coming up, these 20 somethings that are literally running the country here in the United States, they are, I have been around and chosen to have interns and young staff on my teams my whole career. And I've observed a lot of differences over the last 22 years of, because you said you were 48, so I'm 43, be 44 this year. I think about how we grew up and we didn't have phones until cell
No.
phones until we were in the, like, I got my first one when I started driving in high school,
Yeah, I was
but
about 18.
it
Mm.
wasn't a phone that you talked on all the time like we do now. Like all you did was like you turned it on if there was an emergency, like maybe you had a flat tire, and you knew that like your parents had paid for you to be able to make a phone call to tell somebody you were in
So
trouble.
funny when I think about it.
And then as time progressed, they became these devices that are attached to us, right?
Yeah.
And so, I used to think that our generation, like the folks around your age to my age, that we were kind of the last group of people who grew up without technology, who were very trained to have conversations with people,
Yeah.
to deal one-on-one with folks. We didn't send text messages to negotiate through something. And I'll be honest, like probably 15 years ago, I was a little concerned with what are we losing with all of this, dependency and addiction to technology, because I do believe COVID really set us back in a way of people like not going out and making
Yeah.
friends and just going and sitting at a bar after work and getting
Totally.
to know someone that they didn't know. We all did that, but
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure that some of these guys coming up feel comfortable doing that just because of
No,
what
they
they
don't.
went through in those formative years. So I was worried at first. Then I get exposed to this group of people coming up through the ranks now. And I've never seen a drive like this, like these guys have. I mean, their attention to detail, their willingness to do whatever it takes to accomplish the mission, their loyalty to whether it be the president or just their boss in the admin or a cabinet secretary or a member of Congress. Like these guys are completely restoring my faith in people's ability to communicate with each other and really have that loyalty piece for me is huge,
Yeah.
because so it's hard to you don't, there's not always a lot of money involved in these kinds of jobs, right? You're not going to become rich off of it for
No.
sure.
Yeah.
And they're hard, they're long hours. I mean, you're working a trip. If you're with the president and he's on a state visit, let's say to the Middle East or to the UK, which both happened last year, I mean, there are 20-hour plus days leading
Wow.
up to that. And I mean, there's just so I will tell you, I've been incredibly impressed. And my husband and I routinely talk about, if this is consistent with what this young professional group that's coming up now is capable of, we are in such good hands. And I feel like my faith is completely restored. So that's the answer to that piece. But
Yeah.
what are they looking for in terms of a leader that kind of takes them to the finish line of a project? I think what I've been successful and how I've approached it is I'm a super transparent leader. Like I'm a natural storyteller. That's part of being from the South, and I love to tell stories, and that probably comes across in this. And
Yeah, I was
so
about to say I'm enjoying the stories.
but I think that, it's just that authenticity, right? Like anybody
100%.
working around me knows that we're going to deal with feedback in real time, not in an embarrassing way, but like I'm not going to harbor something for 6 months until we have an annual review to tell someone that, like, hey, I really didn't like it when we were doing this 6 months ago and you did X. Like as soon as we do an after action on whatever this event is or whatever this project is we're working on, we're going to address whatever I thought could have been better, whatever I was really impressed with.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times we're doing it in real time. Like but it's also like understanding that, we've all got various missions and goals and for ourselves and that we're trying to meet for the company. And so it's like making sure that we balance, like everything doesn't have to be perfect all the
No.
time. I
No.
love it when it can be, and that's great. And we're certainly proud of those perfect moments. But at the end of the day, like we've got a job to do. We have a finite amount of time to do it. I don't necessarily adhere to the work-life balance very well, but I want it for the people around me, right? Because I understand the importance of it. And I know that it's important for their well-being, their mental health. And
Yeah.
so we shoot for that. And so that means we can't always be perfect on things.
No.
And so if it's a major miss, we may choose to redo something, or if we film something and we really miss something, we may recut it. But at the end of the day, like, so long as we are, continuously making improvements, we're honest with ourselves about what we did good and what we did bad, and we're willing to make those adjustments. I find that folks are really okay and really motivated with leaders, that they know what they're getting. They know you're going to be honest with them. They also know you're going to support them. And I'm
100%.
not going to ask anybody to do anything that I'm not willing to do or haven't done at some point in
No.
my life.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it too, is, they want to feel like they're seen and heard and appreciated, and they want clear communication. Like, what are we trying to do
I
here?
agree.
And as long as you do those things and you're real with people, I find that the motivation, it's somewhat internal to them. You almost can't teach it.
No,
And
I
I heard someone say, we had an event last week, and we had a speaker come in. And someone asked the questions, a former professional athlete. Someone asked the question, like, in the locker room, before you go out to play like a professional American football game, how do you motivate the team to go out there and like play their hearts out and win? And he was really quick to say, if we need to motivate you in that locker room to go out there and win this game, we've already failed.
100%.
You
It's too late. It's too
yeah, you
late.
come into this. Now, it doesn't mean we're not going to get hyped up or like we're
No.
not going to get excited, but that motivation's got to be internal to who you are.
Intrinsic.
And as a leader, you just have to come in and figure out what makes people tick, what makes them like give 150% to go do what we're trying to do. And it's not a matter of giving them motivation. It's a matter of figuring out how you tap into it, but the motivation should already be there.
Yeah, I agree. Got a couple of final questions for you, and it's interesting you called out the work-life balance, because I don't believe in the word balance. I just think it's almost like switch off from work, switch into life, like it just doesn't work that way. Like, I sometimes get my best ideas when I'm walking my Marley Bob or doing something that's completely, excuse me, non-work related, but then all of a sudden I'm like, because I'm not concentrating and I'm just, clear. It's like, oh, there's the answer. Like, and I have to quickly grab it. Like, it's almost like, thank you, I've got that answer now, and kind of clock it sort of thing. You talked a lot about these up and coming, like the Gen Zs, and like working in government, etc., or working for the president's office, if you like. I can't think of the right terms to use. And
Administration, but yes,
sorry,
got
yeah,
it.
administration. Yeah, thank you. And you said that they, sometimes work 20-hour days. They'll do whatever it takes, sort of thing. Obviously, burnout and, exhaustion and stress and being 24/7 always on. And, you talked about even encouraging your team to make sure they've got that well-being and like to get those fresh perspectives. And even it comes back to like being intrinsically motivated, right? You can't be intrinsically motivated when you're exhausted.
Right.
Are they, as much as they're working hard and doing whatever it takes to, I guess, conquer the mission or the purpose? Do they also focus on having that ability to ensure that they like stay healthy like an athlete, in terms of like an athlete, they play, professional sport, but they also have their off seasons as well. Like, are you seeing that they're different to our generation, for example, in terms of, I burnt out and because I was just work, work hard, play hard,
Right.
you was working and then you were at the bars, or you were doing like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Sure.
and I've had to
So
learn later in life. Yeah.
I
Mm.
think what I would say is, so we might need to carve them out as truly an exception to the rule. They are there is there is the chance that they will be disappointed with work life after they leave this time. It's very it's very like unicorn-esque. So I don't know that they are
Yeah.
necessarily looking at it with we need a balance right now. I think they are like, this is possibly like the coolest thing I will ever do.
Ever do
And
opportunity
every job after this might not be
that.
this exciting
Yeah.
again. So I think they're savoring it. I think they are living in the moment. I do think, I don't know if any of the listeners are tracking at all this movement in the US, this Make America Healthy Again movement, this MAHA movement. I do think that the younger kids that are coming up, and these young professionals, they're way healthier than we were.
Yeah.
Like I vaguely remember like choices at the bars and the restaurants when we were in our 20s. They are making different choices
I
for
know.
sure.
They hardly
So
drink. They hardly like. Do you know what I mean? They're opting into. Like on a Friday like afternoon. I'll go to the gym, and I'm looking around. I'm like, the class is full. What's going on here? Like I used to be like, we used to all be at the bar. Like there wasn't going on. Like
100%. Yeah, I do think that their habits are way healthier than at least I can speak from
yeah,
experience,
same.
healthier than how mine
Yeah,
were. I don't know that if you just take that population that they're necessarily having a lot of life balance or but I think for what they're doing in the time frame they're going to do it in, they're just savoring the moment.
yeah,
And I
okay.
think that's totally okay in this.
Yeah,
But I do think they recognize and when they are given downtime, they're doing the right things, right? Like they're reading, they're hanging out
yeah,
with friends, they're resting,
yeah.
traveling to see family. And so I think they're when they are given that downtime, they're
Well,
doing the right thing.
yeah.
But hopefully we will get a generation of healthier folks than maybe how we grew up.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, final question for you. When you booked in for the pod, and I asked what's one unique insider lived experience when it comes to life, leadership, and or business, and you said TBD, and I was like, okay, cool, I'll leave it to you. And then I didn't follow it up. I've completely forgotten. What would
No
be
worries, no
one?
worries.
What would be one? It can be a piece of advice. It could be a piece of some wise words. What would be something that you would give the
Sure.
listeners when it comes to life and or leadership?
And I'm sure I said TBD because no 2 days are the same in my life. And so if I'd put something down on paper, who knows if that would have not been topped by the
Yeah,
time you
that's fair.
talk. So that's definitely possible. Um, so I think yeah, just recently we were having a leadership event for our top 100 leaders in the country, and there were a lot of takeaways from it, but my team is responsible for planning that event. And so we've worked on it for months. We've thought through every possible scenario of, if we do this activity, will they have fun, will they come out of their shell, will they meet new people? And we watched that recently come to life, and we executed it. Just, I mean, it was one of the ones where it was almost perfect, if not perfect. And I got to stand at the back of the room and watch a team that I've curated over the course of my 22 years in work. I've brought them together from different points of life. A lot of them have worked for me previously, and I got to watch them like basically create this forum where every single one of our employees has already given us feedback that they left energized, they left
Love it.
connected, they left with the energy and mission driven like mentality that they are going to need to deliver 2026 for our company. And it's interesting, it's more, I guess, I don't know that it's advice so much as it was a reminder for me that
Yeah.
like the jobs that I've had over the course of my career are not normal jobs. I acknowledge that. Like I tend to work any minute of the day that I'm awake, and I'm totally okay with that. To your point, like I don't necessarily want that. I love what I do. And the reason I love it is because the majority of my career is just based around the people that
Yeah.
I interact with. And there's a lot of them. But people collect different things, and I collect people. I collect
Love it.
relationships. I collect memories with people. I collect connections that I've made and jobs that I've helped people get and jobs that they've helped me get. And so it was just really satisfying to watch a dream come to life, and the goal that we were trying to accomplish with what we had planned actually like hit the mark and do exactly what we wanted it to do. And look around the room and see this carefully curated group of people who every single one of them was specifically chosen to be in that room at that time, hearing from those speakers, interacting with the folks that were attending. And my team and I were able to make that moment happen for everybody. And so I think it's a reminder, like, go do what it is that you love to do. Go do what it is that you're actually good at. Like, don't be scared to make a career change
No.
if not doing that today. If you're not fulfilled, because I can tell you as someone, I'm tired some days, but I can tell you there are seldom there's seldom a day where I feel like I have worked for a living today. And if that's the case, and that's truly how you feel, I think it's just affirmation that you really
Do
did
something
know
different.
what, yeah, you
Yeah.
knew what you, and I came from a background where I grew up. I wasn't exposed to all these corporate jobs and the different things that you major in college. I mean, I remember calling the admissions office of the college that I went to, having no idea what my major was going to be. And I asked the student worker that answered the phone what her major was. And she said, "Oh, I'm majored in public relations." And I was like, "Well, I don't know what that is, but that sounds great. Can you change my major to that?" That's like how I started
It's
college.
cool. Stumbled into
And
it.
and
Mm,
it just all
yeah,
worked and it all clicked and it's just been an incredible career
I
and
love it.
I'm really grateful for it.
Very incredible career. Lisa, thank you so much. And I love that the way you said collecting, it's a reminder to collect along the way, people, relationships, jobs, be energized, mission driven. I think
Yeah,
also, what I'm hearing is follow your intuition. Like
yeah.
there's the data and there's, science behind it, but there's also then this knowing. And you like to sound in public relationships, so you were open to exploring the unknown. So I absolutely love it. Lisa, how do we find out more about you? How do we find out more about Idemia? Say Idemia,
Idemia.
but
Good job, Idemia. So we're easy to find. Idemia.com is the corporate website. I'm super active on LinkedIn. So much so that I think to your point earlier about the weird person finding you, I think you can find all of the ways to contact me on my LinkedIn. So definitely reach out. I'd love to, connect with folks that are listening to your show. And certainly I hope I can collect you as a friend. And next time I'm in Australia, I'd love to meet in
love it.
person.
Yeah, well, sure, definitely. I was going to say that you'll have to come to Melbourne, and I have to get over to the US this year. I've got all these.
Well, if you
I've
come,
got
you
all these.
better you better look me up for
Yeah,
sure. I'd have
I've
my
not been
feelings hurt.
to Northern Virginia, so absolutely. But Lisa, thank you so much. What a joy, what a great conversation to have for me on a Friday, your Thursday evening or afternoon. And I love your sparkle. I love your energy and yeah, just everything that you're doing. So thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, enjoy your afternoon. Thanks, Lisa.